Right now, as you watch this, a memorial service is being held for one of the most recognizable women in Christian television. Family, friends, and grieving viewers have gathered to say goodbye. But Joni Lamb's son was not called to his mother's bedside before she died. The network still has not told the world what actually killed her. And the church hosting today's service just settled a lawsuit involving its own convicted founder. This story is far from over. The silence that became a story. For the millions of people around the world who had watched Joni Lamb on their television screens for decades, who had tuned in faithfully, day after day, year after year, her absence from the broadcast was impossible to ignore. It was the kind of absence that doesn't just create a gap in a schedule. It creates unease. The kind that spreads quietly at first, and then all at once. Where was she? What had happened? And why, in an era when the largest media ministries communicate with their audiences constantly and across every platform imaginable, was the network she co-founded and led saying almost nothing at all? It wasn't until April 6th of this year that anyone in Joni's immediate circle addressed the situation publicly. That's when her husband, Dr. Doug Weiss, appeared on the network's flagship daily program and told viewers directly, "I want you to pray for Joni. You may have noticed she hasn't been on the show recently. She injured her back recently and is healing from 2 hairline fractures on her spine." That was the explanation offered to the public. A back injury. Hairline fractures. Prayers requested. That was it. For viewers who had been quietly worried for weeks, it was both a relief and a frustration, because it was the only thing anyone official had said, and it raised more questions than it answered. Then Joni Lamb died. And on the very day the news broke, May 7, 2026, the network posted a statement on social media that quietly but unmistakably changed the story. It read, in part, "Prior to her recent back injury, Lamb had been dealing with serious health matters that she chose to face head-on and in private. The back injury compounded those challenges and led to a more serious medical situation than anyone had anticipated." Serious health matters. Before the back injury. Chosen to face privately. That is a carefully worded admission that something significantly more was happening inside Joni Lamb's body long before any public disclosure of any kind was ever made. And the obvious question, the question that has now spread across social media, Christian YouTube, and ministry accountability circles with remarkable speed, is one the network has still not answered. What were those serious health matters? What did Joni Lamb actually die from? The trail that investigators were following. The speculation that Joni had been privately battling cancer did not begin with her death. It had been quietly circulating for well over a year before May 7th, and some of it was being tracked methodically behind the scenes by ministry accountability investigators. In March 2025, more than a year before Joni died, an apologetic researcher named Susan Puzio was working alongside the Trinity Foundation's Pastor Planes project, which tracks the flight patterns of private jets operated by major religious organizations. What the tracking data showed was that the network's Gulfstream GV private jet was making repeated trips to San Diego, California. In a private conversation with Trinity Foundation investigator Barry Bowen, Puzio raised a theory that Joni might be crossing the border into Tijuana, Mexico, to visit the Oasis of Hope Cancer Center, a facility well known for offering alternative and integrative cancer treatments. The reasoning behind the theory was grounded in what observers knew about Joni's orientation toward holistic health and natural medicine. It was also notable that Dr. Francisco Contreras, the Oasis of Hope's cancer specialist and clinic director, a well-known advocate for alternative treatment approaches, had appeared on Daystar's programming. Neither Puzio nor the Trinity Foundation published that theory at the time. Without sufficient independent confirmation, they made the deliberate editorial decision that it would not be appropriate to report speculation as fact, however compelling the circumstantial evidence appeared. Then in September 2025, the network's Gulfstream GV made what would turn out to be its final tracked flight to San Diego. Shortly after, the jet was sold entirely. By early 2026, the trail had gone cold, but it hadn't been forgotten. In March 2026, a Facebook commenter named Samuel Lott posted something that landed in a moment when people were already asking questions and spread quickly. He wrote that his son had been at a party where the cousin of Joni Lamb was present, and that person had said Joni had terminal cancer. It was secondhand, at several removes, and Lott himself acknowledged he couldn't confirm it. But it resonated because it was consistent with what a growing number of people had already been quietly wondering. Various news outlets and Christian media commentators subsequently began reporting bone cancer as the specific diagnosis, though as of today, no official confirmation of any cancer diagnosis has been made by the network, by Joni's family, or by any independent verified source. The fact-checking outlet factually conducted a specific search and found no independent confirmation. What the record does show is this: a private jet making repeated trips to a city adjacent to a well-known alternative cancer clinic, a network that admitted serious pre-existing health matters on the day of her death, the sale of that jet shortly after the final San Diego flight, and complete institutional silence on the specific nature of her illness. Whether those pieces fit together the way investigators have theorized remains unconfirmed. But they are not easily dismissed, either. The memorial and the church that adds a layer to everything. Today, Monday, May 18, 2026, Joni Lamb's memorial service is being held at Gateway Church's Southlake, Texas campus, the same institution where Marcus Lamb's funeral was honored in 2021, and the location itself is already generating significant commentary. The viewing took place at 1 p.m., with a memorial service following at 3 p.m. The service is not being live-streamed. Instead, the network will broadcast a special presentation of the memorial tomorrow, Tuesday, May 19th, at 12 p.m., 8 p.m., and 1 a.m. Eastern Time. The network's own statement framed it warmly: "Joni truly loved sharing her life with you. And as we gather to celebrate who she was and what she meant to us, it wouldn't be the same without you." But the choice of venue is not incidental. Gateway Church's founder and former senior pastor, Robert Morris, resigned from the church in June 2024 after multiple individuals came forward with allegations of sexual abuse spanning decades. The story did not end with his resignation. Morris subsequently pleaded guilty to child sexual abuse charges related to conduct in the 1980s and served 6 months in jail before being released in March 2026. He is a convicted child sex offender. The institution where Joni Lamb is being memorialized today is the one he founded and the one that is still processing the legal and spiritual aftermath of his crimes. What makes that context directly relevant to the Joni Lamb story is not simply the association, but the documented connection. Jonathan Lamb and his wife Susie have publicly stated that they sought pastoral counsel from Robert Morris specifically about the tensions surrounding Joni's marriage to Doug Weiss. They brought one of the most intimate and contested questions in their family's recent history to a man who, as later confirmed by his own guilty plea, was a convicted child abuser at the time. And allegations have circulated, still unconfirmed, that Joni Lamb had been made aware of concerns about Robert Morris's conduct before those allegations ever became public knowledge. If that is accurate, it represents a significant accountability question that the Christian media world has not yet been willing to ask loudly enough. What did she know, when did she know it, and what, if anything, did she do with that knowledge? Those questions deserve to be raised, even, and especially, on the day her life is being celebrated. A son who wasn't called to say goodbye. Amid all the institutional questions, perhaps the most humanly devastating detail in this entire story belongs not to a journalist's investigation or a regulatory filing, but to a post on social media. As news of Joni's passing spread on May 7th, her daughter-in-law Susie Lamb responded publicly to a broadcaster who had expressed condolences toward Jonathan and his family. Susie wrote, "Thank you. We weren't informed of anything. We were down the road, but weren't given a call to say goodbye. We forgive them." In a subsequent post, she added that those present at Joni's bedside had known she was dying the previous evening and had not called Jonathan to come. It was the network's attorney, Tom Callender, who eventually telephoned Jonathan to inform him that his mother was gone. That detail, that a son was not called to his dying mother's bedside, that the estrangement between them ran so deep that her final hours passed without his presence, is a grief that no institutional controversy can adequately frame. Whatever the full truth of the family's fractured history, whatever the rights and wrongs of the disputes over succession and marriage and the deeply painful abuse allegations that have never been fully resolved, what happened in those final hours was a human tragedy. Jonathan Lamb lost his mother when she removed him from the network. He lost her again when she died without his goodbye. Susie's final post said simply, "I have no words right now. One day we will. For now, it's just a broken heart." Who leads Daystar now? With Joni gone, the question of leadership is urgent and genuinely complicated. The network's parent organization is Word of God Fellowship Incorporated, a non-profit registered in the state of Georgia, governed by a small board of directors whose membership is not publicly disclosed on any website. The organization submits only officer names to the Georgia Secretary of State. In 2024, it amended its governing documents to require between 3 and 5 board members. That board, whoever its members are, holds full authority to appoint the next president and chief executive of one of the largest Christian television networks in the world. Marcus Lamb made his wishes on the matter of succession clear in a 2021 email to his family, writing, "So if I precede Joni in death, then my directive is that Joni will replace me as the head of Daystar. I further direct that if Joni passes or retires, then Jonathan Lamb will become the head of Daystar." Jonathan had earned a business degree from Oral Roberts University specifically in preparation for that role. But that email carries no legal weight. The board can appoint whoever it chooses, and given the estrangement between Jonathan and the current network leadership, his return appears unlikely. 3 realistic paths sit before the board. A Lamb family member such as Rachel Lamb Brown could step into the role. A current Daystar executive such as CFO Arnold Torres could be elevated from within. Or the board could conduct an external search for a new chief executive, a process that, based on precedent from Marcus's death in 2021, could take months before any public announcement is made. Trinity Foundation President Pete Evans has been direct about what he believes the priority must be for whoever takes that chair: a genuine, thoroughgoing cleanup of the network's programming roster, removing what he characterizes as prosperity gospel figures who use religion for financial gain. Evans has publicly stated that Jonathan Lamb would be an appropriate successor, but only if that accountability actually happens. Daystar's current lineup includes figures such as Rod Parsley and Creflo Dollar, televangelists with well-documented patterns of lavish, donor-funded living that have drawn sustained criticism from ministry accountability organizations for years. The next person to lead this network will not merely be inheriting a management challenge. They will be inheriting a theological reckoning. Joni Lamb built something genuinely remarkable. Beginning with a single television station in Alabama in the mid-1980s, she and Marcus Lamb constructed a broadcasting platform that reached into homes across every continent on Earth, carrying programming that millions of people found spiritually meaningful and personally important. That legacy is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged honestly alongside everything else that is true about the final chapter of her life. But the unanswered questions are equally real. The cause of her death remains unconfirmed by the institution she led. The board that will determine the network's entire future operates without public transparency. Her son was not permitted to say goodbye. The church hosting her memorial today is one whose convicted founder pleaded guilty to child sex abuse charges just months ago. And a private jet that quietly flew south toward a cancer clinic again and again, before it was sold without explanation, still has no official account attached to it. We will continue watching. The memorial broadcast airs tomorrow. The succession question will develop in the weeks and months ahead. And the unresolved threads of this story, the ones that existed long before Joni's back injury and long before her death, are not going anywhere simply because the woman at their center is no longer here. If anything, her absence may be what finally forces the answers that her presence, for so long, allowed to remain unspoken. All information presented in this production is drawn from verified public sources, including confirmed reporting by Religion News Service, The Roy's Report, the Trinity Foundation, CBS News, NPR, Kara News, PBS NewsHour, the Fort Worth Report, church leaders, and Dignity Memorial's official obituary listing. Robert Morris's guilty plea and conviction are matters of confirmed public court record. All unconfirmed allegations are presented as unconfirmed. This production is intended for educational and informational purposes only, and is produced with respect for all individuals discussed.